Welcome, everybody, to Inside Boxing Daily on the Grueling Truth Sports Network. Inside Boxing Daily is brought to you by MyBookie.ag. To get up to a 100% deposit, or to get a 100% deposit up to your first $300 you put in, go to MyBookie.ag, put in the promo code TGT100, or go to thegruelingtruth.com and click on the MyBookie.ag banner at the top of the page. We are also brought to you by our friends at the Retired Boxers Foundation. Make sure you check out Jackie Richardson and Alex Ramos over there. They do great work. You can find them on Facebook. I am your co-host for Inside Boxing Daily, Mike Goodpaster. Right now, I'd like to welcome in my co-host, Jeremiah Preisser. How you doing, Jeremiah?
I'm always good when I get to talk boxing with you, Mike, so let's get it going.
Thought you were going to say you're always good when you get to talk to me, but all right.
Yeah, that too, but, we're starting a show, so I just want to keep it topical.
Yeah, no homo. All right, so Hurd lost his IBF WBA junior middleweight titles last Saturday night. Close 12-round decision to Julian J. Rock Williams. This was a hell of a fight. I think this is our fight of the year so far, Jeremiah. It's not like it's got a bunch of competition. But what was your take on the fight? And I would like to bring up the fact that I am not the one on Inside Boxing Weekly that said I thought that Hurd could beat anybody at 154 or 160.
Yeah, well, to be honest with you, there is only one man who ventured that far, and he is our resident analyst and lawyer, John Ehrenhofer. I mean, John, we like you, man, but it just seems like you got this wrong here. I mean, to be honest with you, though, I mean, John wasn't too far off in his prediction. I mean, most of us felt that, Williams would box nicely in the first few rounds, and then eventually Hurd would catch up to him, and that didn't turn out to be the case. I mean, I saw just about everybody felt that way. I mean, because I typically patrol Twitter, see what the conventional wisdom is among the hardcore fans, see what's going on, see what the feeling is. I remember, who was it? There's some well-known boxing figure who was like, hey, do any of you think, Williams is going to win this fight? And nobody said yes. So I'm happy, man. It's, Julian Williams, he was written off like a lot of guys in this modern age where, you lose once and your flaws are exposed, and, people are just hypercritical. They act like you can't rebound or, this or that. It's just that kind of a sport. Actually, that's what I appreciate about the UFC fans more than anything, is that, they're accustomed to losses. So, they handle it a bit better. It's not such a big deal. They recognize that styles make fights. And of course, that's not all of them. There's a bunch of dumb ones too, but it's part of the nature of the beast. So again, kudos to them. But yeah, I mean, I was impressed with Julian Williams, and I really like what I saw. I mean, his jab was sharp. He was tagging him frequently with it. He went to the body really well. His straight right hand was really nice. He showed enough power to hurt Hurd and drop him. Looked like that left hook that put Hurd on the canvas was a nice left hook, but it landed on the left side of Hurd's face, almost in the temple area. So, it didn't hurt him terribly, but it was a damn good shot, and you could see that he was affected by it. And I honestly don't think that was the only punch that Hurd felt. But yeah, I like how he was using angles. I don't like to use the term exposed all the time, but I think in this fight, I think it applies because when Hurd was trying to get on the inside, throughout the fight, Julian Williams would move him. He'd let Hurd fall in, before he could get his work done. And, it just made Hurd look sloppy. Williams just looked better balanced and sharper with his shots. It was all around damn good performance. I mean, and it's not that Hurd didn't land a lot of good shots himself, but, Williams was the sharper of the two, and he got the job done. I mean,
I think the difference was? I just think Hurd's got bad feet. I mean, when you watched him, he allowed Williams to smother his punches.
He's lazy.
He was the taller, bigger fighter, but he refused to utilize his height and reach advantage. He didn't keep Williams at bay. And when you watched Williams fight Charlo, he had some success the first couple rounds, and then Charlo utilized, and kept him at a distance. where it just seemed to me that Hurd just let Williams kind of smother him, and he couldn't really do anything but just kind of fight back. And I don't think that I think Hurd's feet are the reason that he couldn't get leverage, because it seemed like he just doesn't move them good enough. I mean, from the waist up, he's a hell of a fighter. From the waist down, I think he has issues right now. We have a question from a listener, which you can tweet us at Grueling Truth. At Mr. Chairman says,
What's up, Mr. Chairman?
Hurt should forget about the rematch and rather move up to 160 where his natural weight is. I feel Hurt was weight drained from all the weight he cut to make 154 and didn't have enough energy or power to fight hard enough.
Well, thanks for chiming in. And I will say that just about all of us think that Hurd is sort of a weight bully at 154. You know, just about it. I mean, it's gotten old, the amount of people who are like, how is this dude making weight? And honestly, I don't know. I mean, he could be abusing diuretics or something. I mean, there are plenty of ways he could be doing it. Maybe he's just really good with his cardio.
Maybe he's hanging out with Gerald Miller.
Yeah, maybe he's hanging out with Miller. I don't know what sort of drug testing he's doing. Maybe he is, doing comprehensive drug testing and whatnot. But my thing is this: is even if Jarrett Hurd was weight drained, the problems that were exposed in this fight are still going to persist. His footwork is still sloppy. I mean, he's just heavy on his feet. He just seemed like he had the confidence, and rightfully so, since he's been able to do it to every other opponent before Julian Williams. But he had the confidence that he can just out in-fight everybody, right? He can just drain guys. He can lean on them, et cetera, et cetera. And I do think he is a good inside fighter. I do think he's a quality body puncher. But he's going to have a tough time in bigger weights, partially because his defense is just not that good. Again, even if you think he was drained and possibly he could throw more punches and maybe get Julian Williams out of there in a rematch. I'm not saying that's impossible. I mean, if Jarrett Hurd started from a distance, I mean, if he really worked on his jab, right? Like if he was throwing a 1-1-2 and then he would close the distance and work, I think he'd be better off. But he falls in a lot. And when he gets there, he gets a little lazy. And I think he's just going to have issues with that wherever he goes. I just think that's part of his problem. That's part of his fighter makeup. Is it impossible for him to shore up those flaws? No, I don't think so. I mean, he's a good fighter. He's still relatively young. So no, again, but it's hard to say what exactly his ring IQ is because I haven't seen him in a rematch. I haven't seen a time when he's had to go in there and adjust. So until then, I don't know. But I mean, the word is that there's a rematch clause in the contract. And so, you should be able to look forward to him versus Williams again. And we'll see. We'll see exactly if he was weight drained or, it was bad strategy. But again, I think even if you believe that he was weight drained, he was exposed to a degree. I mean, his footwork was lazy. He wasn't doubling his jab. He wasn't working from a distance. He allowed himself to get smothered. His chin wasn't quite as good as a lot of us thought. So again, the flaws are there. And if you're fighting a guy like Charlo, who's good at either one of the Charlos, especially the one at 160, who I think is a bit better and hits a little bit harder, if you're fighting a guy who knows how to utilize distance and isn't going to be bullied by you, I think it's a tough thing, man. I mean, even if he fights a 37-year-old Golovkin, I mean, the rate at which Julian Williams was landing the jab was concerning, in my opinion, because Williams wasn't consistent with the jab. He had various game plans and implemented them all effectively. But I mean, if you fight somebody like Golovkin who has a really good jab, or Canelo who can who's quick and has got a real good sense of distance. I don't know, man. I think he's going to struggle, but we'll see if they get a rematch, and we'll see if he can make any quality adjustments.
All right, we had announced today on Fox Sports pay-per-view, Keith One-Time Thurman will be facing Manny Pac-Man Pacquiao on July 20th on Premier Boxing Champions. Caleb Plant, Mike Lees to fight underneath of it. What's your take on this? I think this is a great matchup, especially because Thurman's only fought, once in the last few years, and he didn't look great there. Pacquiao's looked solid. Of course, he beat Adrian Broner, who doesn't throw any punches back, but I think this is a good matchup, Jeremiah. I don't know about the pay-per-view aspect of it, but it's a good matchup.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think at this juncture, Pacquiao, whenever he gets a big fight, I don't like the pay-per-view model, but if anybody deserves it, it's him. And we're talking about somebody like Thurman, who's had good exposure on free TV and has had damn good ratings. Him and Porter did really damn well. So again, I don't like the model, but it makes some sense. And Pacquiao, to his credit, is an icon. I don't think people realize just what this man, the influences that he's had in his part of the world. I mean, because we're by and large disconnected from it. But this guy's he's a walking legend, man. I mean, he's a musician, he's an actor, he's a politician, he's a legendary fighter. I mean, et cetera, et cetera. He's a philanthropist. I mean, the guy has really done a ton and has a number of books, right? Just in the things that he's done. I like the matchup too. I mean, and we talked about on the weekly show over and over again that we thought this is the way it was going to go, that Spence was going to get Porter, Pacquiao was going to get Thurman, and then the winners were going to fight one another. And then eventually you get the Crawford fight down the line, because at that point, granted, Spence gets by all these guys, and I don't think Thurman is an easy task. I don't think Porter is an easy task. But whoever comes out of that is going to be a really big sell, and they're probably going to get Crawford, and then it's going to be worth it for both sides to come together.
Well, especially a really big sell, Jeremiah, because I think if you put these two guys in a fight, you're going to get a fight.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and if Thurman wins, he's siphoning. I mean, it's really good marketing. I mean, he's siphoning away, some of Pacquiao's, pay-per-view, some of his pay-per-view buys and whatnot. I mean, he's going to be a more notable name. But yeah, I like the matchup. I mean, Pacquiao, even at his age, still looks like he has something left. He's certainly not pulling the trigger as much as he used to. He's not as sharp as he used to be. He doesn't hit as hard as he used to. But most people generally agree that he's about a top 5 welterweight in the world. Broner doesn't really indicate – a win over Broner doesn't really indicate that he's an upper echelon type fighter. But I got to be honest, I'm really surprised with the polls that I've seen so far. Just every single poll that I've seen.
Yeah,
where
our poll heavily favors Pacquiao.
Exactly. Well, and I shared one from a page called Slip and Counter Boxing, which is run by Chris Way, and he's a cool dude too. I saw one. I saw another one on Twitter. Who was running that? Adam Abravitz or something like that from Saturday Night Boxing. It was one of those guys. And it was just about 70-30 all the way around. I'm pretty stunned by those numbers.
I voted Pacquiao too.
Well, I voted Thurman, and my
You're
reason
going to be wrong.
No, I'm going to be right.
No, you're going to be wrong. Thurman doesn't.
Well,
I think Thurman's got. I think Thurman's heart is gone. It's been 2 years. I mean, hell, he had trouble with Riverside Rockies last time out.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair, honestly. And I don't like to make concrete judgments because it is boxing. I mean, look at all the people who thought that Jarrett Hurd was going to beat Julian Williams, or the many, many other times that we've all been wrong, in our predictions. That's the game. But my thing is this. I think Thurman will be up for this fight. I do think that it's a legit concern to say, hey, maybe his heart is not in it, 2 years away. And then it almost seems like he's making up excuses. He's like, oh, well, I was depressed and, this and that. I'm like, dude, no, you weren't. I mean, you were like in Nepal, getting a wife and, trying to get her immigration papers filed and all this other stuff. He was just living it up. I mean, not once did he say, I mean, he did an interview with, John Responding and Dennis Taylor, the Ringside Boxing Show, and you didn't get a hint of that in there. You didn't get a hint that he was, crushed or anything. Again, he was newlywed. He was living life. He had some big paydays with the Porter fights and the Garcia fights. I just don't buy it. But what I think is that Thurman will get up for this fight. I think he will be sharper after struggling with Lopez, and I think he's going to be about to pre 2-year layoff form, about what he was against Porter and Garcia, and I think that's definitely enough to beat this Manny Pacquiao.
All right, and then we have some disappointing news in the welterweight division, where it looks like Terence Crawford versus Kell Brook is possible for later this year in the UK. I don't want to see this. Do you want to see this? Because I'm just figuring it's going to be another broken eye socket.
Yep. No, I'm with you, man. This, if you're putting your promoter's cap on, what they're doing is they're just trying to make as big of a name with Terrence Crawford as they can to try to use it as leverage whenever the Spence fight comes around. And, say what you want, Kell Brook is pretty popular in the UK. A lot of guys are going over the UK to help build their brand. Vasyl Lomachenko is, I believe he's going to be doing it against Luke Campbell. There have been a number of guys who have gone over there because, it's worthwhile. I know Golovkin was entertaining the thought of going over and fighting Billy Joe Saunders. And, it makes some sense from a marketing standpoint.
Well, here, we've got a question real quick from @PatD, who says, easy fight for Crawford, easy money for Arum without worrying about it being or not being pay-per-view here in the States, with it being England pay-per-view this time. And I think that makes sense because I don't know that Kell Brook is extraordinarily popular where it's going to sell a lot, but he can make some pay-per-view money over there and then put it on ESPN Plus or ESPN over here and get more subscribers possibly.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, that's what ESPN Plus is about. I mean, DAZN is doing the same thing. I mean, it's about subscribership at this point, and trying to get some British ones because eventually DAZN they want to be global. I mean, they are global in a sense, but they aren't injected in most. They aren't injected in most countries. But yeah, I mean, I guess it makes some sense. Again, Kell Brook is pretty popular over in Great Britain. He's been in some interesting fights, but it feels like Amir Khan 2.0, where Kell Brook doesn't seem as beat up, though maybe he is. Khan's been knocked out a bunch before Crawford got to him. It feels like, maybe I'm wrong here, and if you disagree, go ahead and chime in, but it feels like Kell Brook is in better shape currently, like he's got a little more tread on the tires than Amir Khan, and he's pretty popular.
You got a response from @Cornerman, who says he can't do any worse than Khan's feeble effort.
Yeah, that's a good point. You would expect that Kell Brook would be more competitive, and that's fine again. But maybe I'm wrong here, but it just seems like the general sense is we don't really need this. We know how it's the same kind of feeling as a Amir Khan fight, though. It's like we know how it's going to end, and that takes a lot of luster off the fight itself.
Okay, we have @Techno Viking, who says easy win for Crawford at 147. Brook will be weight drained and just at 70%. So I guess that's probably a Brit who's already making an excuse. Kell Brook's just not good enough to beat him.
Yeah, well, I do think there's something to the weight drain thing. I mean, he's been struggling. I mean, if you look at his career, he's actually fought at 154 a number of times before he became a trinket holder at 147. So, and he's always been a big guy. I mean, there's always been reports about how he balloons up in between fights and, he's just not taking care of himself the way he's supposed to. And even lately, I mean, the feeling was that he was going to go to 154 and try to carve out something there, But again, it's one of those things. Even if he's 70%, even if he's 80%, it doesn't really matter at this stage because Crawford's going to get him out of there. I mean, Kell Brook just kind of is what he is at this point, and the result just kind of feels set in stone.
All right. Eric T says, this should be a good fight. Brook was beating Spence the first 6 rounds before his eye injury came back to haunt him, and GGG caused the injury, not Spence. Spence couldn't even hurt little Mikey, so his power is a myth, especially when he has to test with Vada. This is a 50-50 fight. I think Eric T's smoking some of that wacky stuff.
Yeah, I don't think. Well, I mean, we'll see the odds when they come out, but it's a guarantee that it's not going to be a 50-50 fight. No. I do think that Kell Brook is a talented guy. I mean, I really did. He feels like wasted talent to me because I think he was capable of quite a bit more. I mean, and it sucks that he wasn't able to make a little bit more money in his career too. I mean, he probably could have squeezed Amir Khan in there at some point, and they could have done it, and there'd be less question marks about it now. But I do think Kell Brook is a damn good fighter, and I do think, that he was competitive with Errol Spence, but he got beat up twice and he got both eyes busted. He just mentally he can't be the same, right? I don't think you can ask for a Kell Brook who fought Errol Spence. I don't think we're going to get that.
All right, here we go. We got another Twitter question. My phone turned off at the time I got the questions. Now I got to turn it back on. All right, question: Would Americans be more willing to pay for the pay-per-view if the price was marked differently, say a lot cheaper, like the UK, $20? And this is from Hamed.
What's up, Hamed? I do think so. Yeah, sure. I mean, I actually think that if people want to,
how about this, Jeremiah? The pay-per-views the one I ranted about, Crawford and Khan, I'd have paid $20 to see it.
Well, yeah. Well, look at the marketing strategy. This is why I wish boxing promoters and stuff would get with the times. You had two YouTubers put on a fight for $10 a piece, and they did huge numbers compared to. I think they did way bigger numbers than Fury and Wilder at $10 a pop. So I don't think it's absurd at all to say, hey, pay $10, pay $20 for this pay-per-view, and you get this sort of a fight. But the problem is a lot of American fans have been pretty skeptical of the pay-per-view model recently because, and again, you don't even know. Bob Arum and Top Rank have not even released the numbers for Terrence Crawford and Amir Khan. So that tells you
12. There was 12 people that bought that.
Yeah, because the numbers bombed because that's the way.
They're all with the last name of Conor Crawford on the 12 that bought it.
Yeah, exactly. It was probably Khan's extended family in Pakistan, and Crawford's family. It was probably just ringside. He probably just got him tickets. I mean, I don't know who the hell bought it. It wasn't worth it. Here's the problem though: is that a lot of American fans and anybody who's been listening to this show for an extended period of time knows that we're upset not just because of the price itself, but because they're not giving us a valuable undercard. So if you had Terrence Crawford versus Kell Brook, and let's imagine you put Vasyl Lomachenko and Luke Campbell on the undercard, and maybe Teofimo Lopez and the Japanese guy that he slated to fight for $20. I think a lot of guys would go for that. The problem is that the model for years and years has been an overmatched opponent, and then a bunch of prospects on the undercards beating up guys who don't belong, who aren't really giving them much to look at. So that's the problem. But if you give us a quality card, I don't even think it has to be that heavy at $20 a pop. But if you give us a quality card, I think you could get a lot of people to pay $20 for this.
$20, I'd pay it. I'd pay $20 for the zone and have time to give me shit. All right, we got any other boxing news from the day you want to talk about, or you want to go to On This Day, which it would be on yesterday that Bert Cooper died. But do you have anything else before we get to Bert?
What was I going to? Oh, I wanted to mention. Yes, I did wanted to go. I wanted to focus my attention real quickly to Tyson Fury because he said something that I thought was damn cool, and it really sucks that his Laniel claim is not that strong. I mean, it's kind of cool to see.
Oh yeah, because of a mandatory thing.
Exactly. Yeah. It just sucks because Tyson Fury is really riding high with his personality right now. The WBC was like, hey, well, now it's going to be you and Dillian White for the WBC mandatory shot. And Tyson Fury said, fuck off. He's like, you ain't telling me to do anything. And he basically said that the WBC is jerking White's chain. And if you look at Dominic Breazeale. Okay, he beat Eric Molina to get a shot at Deontay Wilder, but Dillian White has beat Joseph Parker. He's beat Chisora. He's beat a bunch of guys. I mean, arguably you could say his resume is better than Deontay Wilder's. Okay, and yet he's still being dicked around. And the WBC is like, no, you got to fight Tyson Fury. But I love what Tyson Fury said. He was just like, nah, fuck you guys. I'm not doing anything. I'm the boss. And really, with his stature, I think he can do a bit of this. And honestly, it's refreshing to see. And I wish a lot more fighters would do it. Because as we've talked about on the show as well, a lot of guys hide behind that, where it's like, oh, it's a mandatory. I've got to do it, or I'm going to be stripped of the title. Nah, man, it's all politics. If you said you don't want to fight, because look again what happened with the WBC. Initially, they said, oh, well, Tyson Fury and Deontay Wilder were sanctioning the rematch. This is going to happen. And then all of a sudden, Bob Arum gets involved, and, Deontay Wilder and Tyson Fury are like, no, we're going to go a different way, and we'll get back to you a little bit later. So, again, this is whimsical in nature. It's political. But I was really happy to see Tyson Fury say it. He was just like, nah, I'm not playing along with this crap. And to be honest with you, he shouldn't. I mean, he can slap White around after he beats Wilder.
Yeah, but we'll probably be in 10, 15 years before we see either one of them fight.
Maybe.
You want to talk a little Bert Cooper? Because Bert Cooper passed away the other day, and he was 38 and 25. But he was one of my favorite fighters when I was growing up. The thing I remember about him was he lost to Reggie Gross in 1986. He got hit with one shot and quit. Now, Henry Tillman, who was an Olympian, I can't remember, did Henry win gold or silver? Do you remember?
Hell, I can't remember.
But he was on that great 1984 Olympic team, and he was 10-0 at the time. And I know they put him up against Bert Cooper. This was for, I think it was either the NABF or the USBA cruiserweight title. And this was on, like, CBS Sports Saturday or something. And this is a great fight. And I know you said you had never seen it before. You need to go watch the fight. Tillman was down twice in round two. The first time, big left hook, because I watched this today. I actually watched like 6 Bert Cooper fights. Nobody else probably did that today. But he also knocked him off overhand right. He won a close decision. Cooper won a close decision, which then made him one of the bigger cruiserweight contenders. And the thing about him is, if he'd have stayed at cruiserweight, I think after Holyfield left, I think he could have been a champion for a while. But 1987, and this is one you ought to go watch too, because this is one of my favorites. Willie DeWitt, who was supposed to be the next George Chuvalo. He was an Olympic silver medalist in 1984. He was seen as a rising challenger. He was undefeated at the time, like 15-0. I don't know if he knocked everybody out, but he was a big puncher. And Smoking Bert Cooper smoked him in the second round. And it ended up being the only loss of DeWitt's career, but I think it was also the only time DeWitt fought anybody that was breathing. But the thing is here, he had moved to heavyweight already. And remember, the Reggie Gross guy that he quit against in 1986 was the same guy that Mike Tyson, you'll see, knock out in one of his first 10 fights, I think. He knocked out Reggie Gross in the first round. He then got a shot against Carl Williams, the Truth. And it was one of those fights where the Truth was on, and Carl Truth Williams beat the hell out of him. And really, Cooper kind of disappeared after that until you fast forward to 1989 when he comes in to fight George Foreman. And this was during Foreman's huge comeback. And Cooper was like 211 pounds. Foreman was 252. And Foreman just beat the dog snot out of him. I think he stopped him in the second or third round. And after that, he did what Bert Cooper did. He came back and gave a great account of himself. He beat Orlin Norris. I think that was for the NABF title. Stopped Norris. Norris was a solid fighter. And then he went up against merciless Ray Mercer. And Ray Mercer, as we know, was a damn good fighter. I think this fight was a lot closer than it was scored, but Cooper put up a great fight against him. And that led to being, I think he was the first. I can't remember if he was the first or second title defense for Riddick Bowe, because I know Bowe fought him and Jesse Ferguson back-to-back. I don't remember which one he fought first, though. Do you?
No, I don't
You're
remember.
too young to remember that. But yeah,
I know.
he fought Riddick Bowe. He gets destroyed. So, of course, we figure he's going to disappear again. And in 1991, he pops up and he beats Joe Hipp. Joe Hipp was a tough dude that went life or death with Tommy Morrison. And November of 1991, I just watched this fight today, too. It's one of my favorite heavyweight fights. And he gets a shot against Evander Holyfield. And the story was, Holyfield was supposed to do a pay-per-view fight against Francesco Damiani, who was a great Olympian who I think won a gold medal. but I think he lost to Tyrell Biggs in 84, but I think he won the gold in 80. I'm not sure. But that was supposed to be a big fight in the Omni. It was supposed to be pay-per-view, and Damiani pulled out. Bert Cooper took the fight on like 2 weeks' notice. Bert Cooper's win over Joe Hipp was like at the end of October, and his fight against Holyfield was at the end of November. So it wasn't only that he only had 2 weeks to train. Hell, it had only been a month since he was supposed to fight there. And when you look at this fight, Cooper was a huge underdog. And Cooper came out, and like I said, I watched this today. In the third round, he hit Holyfield, and Holyfield got tangled up in the ropes. The ropes saved him from going down. He got a standing 8 count. And he comes back, and these guys just beat the hell out of each other. Now, the interesting stat that I saw from this fight, and this is for everybody that thought like Tyson Fury against, who's that guy, Deontay Wilder, was a great fight. These guys fought 6 rounds, or it got stopped at the start of the 7th, and Holyfield landed 188 punches. Cooper landed 104. Do you remember that great Tyson Fury fight? Neither one of those guys, I think, landed more than like 85 or 90 punches, did they? In 12 rounds.
No, I think it was more like 60, 70.
Yeah, I think Wilder was like 70 and Fury was like 78. But that's my point. When you watch that fight and you compare it to that, and then if you want to go even farther, have you seen Moore and Cooper?
Moore and Cooper. Nah, I don't know. Maybe, but it had to have been a long time ago.
No, it wasn't, Jeremiah. It was 1992. And that's not that long ago when you're as old as I am. But this was on pay-per-view. And this fight is another one where you got to look at the punch stats, because these guys, in 5 rounds, both landed like 170 punches. And, I mean, Moore went down in the 1st and 3rd. Cooper went down in the 1st and 5th. Moore became the first semi-left-handed heavyweight champion, because this was that WBO, which nobody cares about. And the fight was named the KO Magazine Fight of the Year in 1992, but it was an absolutely great fight. And then Cooper, once again, kind of disappeared. He got knocked out by Corey Sanders, got knocked out by I can't remember if he got knocked out by Mike Weaver or lost a decision, but he was never the same after that, and he fought on for another, 20 years. I mean, this is a dude that in 2011 fought Luis Ortiz. You remember Darrell Wilson? He fought Darrell Wilson. Baby Joe Macy, who knocked him out. He fought Frezekindo in 1999.
Holy shit, man.
There you go. Derek Jefferson. So Samson Pua, Alexander Zolkin. So he fought a little bit of everybody after that. Never really got a significant win after the Moore fight. But he's a guy I think should be remembered. And if you don't remember him, go watch Moore against Cooper on YouTube. Go watch Holyfield against Cooper on YouTube. Because when you watch just those 2 fights, it tells you all you need to know about the guy. Because this is a guy that he fought Riddick Bowe. And Riddick Bowe knocked him out in the 2nd round. And I think that was on the undercard of Douglas and Holyfield. And everybody said, well, his career's over because he lost a decision to Mercer. He got knocked out violently in like the 2nd round by Riddick Bowe. And that was in October of 1990. A year later, he was probably 1 punch away from being the legitimate, undisputed heavyweight champion of the world. So
incredible.
I think the guy's story is great. And when you look at his record, you see 38-25 with 31 knockouts. But it doesn't tell you the story of him. They called him Smoking Bert Cooper. I think he was from Philadelphia, or close to Philadelphia, so he's a Philadelphia heavyweight. And I remember in '86 when he upset Henry Tillman, and then when he's fighting Cooper, and then everybody always compared him to Joe Frazier because he looked like Joe Frazier. And I know at one point before Carl Truth Williams had stopped him, if he would have beat Williams, I think he would have got the shot against Tyson, which would have been extremely interesting because they were about the same damn size, really. They were both small, but they both could crack. That would have been an exciting 50 seconds no matter what happened.
Yeah, and I wanted to take it to the Orland Norley. Damn it. Orland Norris fight just for a second. Wasn't Norris a pretty damn good cruiserweight himself? I mean, who
Yeah,
would,
Orland Norris.
jump up and.
Did Norris win?
Well, he was one of the better
cruiserweight
ones,
title?
wasn't he?
Yeah, he might have. He was one of those guys that if he would have stayed at cruiserweight, I think he could have reigned for a long time. But Orland Norris, I can't remember. I'm pretty sure he was the cruiserweight champion of the world.
Yeah, I'm trying to think because I know.
Because I met Adolfo Washington at a small club card down in Rising Sun, Indiana, same one that Vinny Pazienza was at. And Adolfo Washington got beat by Orland Norris, and I know that was for the title. I can't remember who he beat for the title because I think he beat like one of those foreign guys that got a title shot because he knew the right person, which translated means Don King. But I can't remember who he beat. I know he beat Arthur Williams a couple times, who was solid. But yeah, he was a damn good fighter. And I think he lost his title to Nate Miller. And then the interesting thing about him is he's got wins at heavyweight over, I think he beat Tony Tucker. And then he beat Nate Miller in a rematch that I think it was in heavyweight division. And then he had a no contest on Fox Sports on a primetime fight against Mike Tyson. And he went the distance with Andrew Galata. He got stopped by Vitaly Klitschko. He went over to Denmark and fought Brian Nielsen. So there's always a decent shot he really won that fight, but they didn't give it to him. But if you look at him, even up to 2005 with Orland Norris, he went the distance and lost a majority decision to Albert Sosanowiski, who I think was one of Klitschko's title defenses.
Yeah, I believe you're right. But it looks like he got.
Wait a second, though, because this is the other thing. I just looked this on BoxRec. Vasily Jurov, because I do know the Bert Cooper stuff like this, but not the Orland Norris. I was faking it on the Orland Norris. But Vasily Jurov, he fought Vasily Jurov to a draw in 2005.
Yeah, Jurov was past it at that point. I mean, he was. I mean,
yeah, so was
it's still it's still notable. Norris was even further past it. But no, yeah, Jurov was. I think that was after his fight with Joe Macy and some of the other guys. So yeah, he's a little past it at that point. But
you also know
I mean, it's funny.
Jurov was a tough son of a bitch. He'd be a tough son of a bitch if you met him right now.
Oh yeah, exactly. Well, I think he lives down in Arizona. To be honest with you,
I have no clue where he lives.
Yeah, I'm friends with him on Facebook. He doesn't
I am
say
too,
anything.
but
he doesn't say anything.
Where he lives. No, I know. I've never seen it, but I know I am friends with him on Facebook. So.
Yeah, well, his English is probably pretty good at this point. We'll probably try to get him on the show, see if he talks of boxing. But we should probably touch on Harold Letterman before we go as well.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, let's go. But yeah, no, it's to be honest with you, I didn't even know that he was fighting cancer. I don't know if maybe I'd heard it and then forgot it. I don't exactly remember, but yeah, it surprised me just as much as everybody else, it seemed. I mean, I really had no idea. I mean, he was still doing the little shows from the real popular restaurant, what is it, Jimmy's Corner in New York City, before the fights. And yeah, I mean, everything seemed to be all right. But yeah, all of a sudden they popped the news and I was pretty surprised. I mean, I didn't always agree with Harold. You're never going to always agree with anybody in terms of scoring. I mean, but he was right there. He put his time in. And, a lot of us are going to miss just that simple, okay, Jim. I mean, and what John Scully actually brought up this point. Like, and what – in boxing, if you just said, okay, Jim, and you're talking to a hardcore fan, automatically they're going to know who you're referring to. But it's kind of upsetting that, HBO is no longer around to give him a proper send off. Maybe Top Rank or somebody else will, give him a 10 count in the next big show they do. But
I think they did this last week. They combined him with Bert Cooper, didn't they?
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, you're right. Sorry about that.
Okay.
But yeah, it is a bit disappointing that HBO can't do it.
I forgive you, by the way.
Yeah, like Jim Lampley can't cry on TV and get all emotional and stuff. But yeah, it's kind of sad that HBO goes off air and then he kicks the bucket, and it's unfortunate. I don't know exactly what he was doing afterwards. My buddy Diego Morella, who contributes to the Ring magazine. He said that for a long time there, he was a pharmacist, ended up getting fired from his job. Yeah.
I thought he owned a pharmacy.
Maybe you're right. Maybe that was afterwards. All I saw was that he did pharmacy part-time, and he got fired from one of his jobs because it was the second time that he was a no-call, no-show because he was calling a fight ringside. And to be honest with you, I can't blame him. I'd rather be there than giving people prescription pills over the counter anyways. But, yeah, it's a bummer. I mean, the guy put his time in. He's a well-known figure, and you're just going to have to, I would say that I liked him. In comparison to the Showtime guy, I mean, I thought they were pretty close to on par. I didn't really, sometimes I thought Harold Letterman was way off. Sometimes I thought he was
I always thought he was way. You know what? I used to be, when they'd show a score of a fight, and I'm keeping score, and it was the same as Harold Letterman, I would think, damn, I'm screwing this up bad.
Yeah, you're like, I'm going to have to go rewatch this afterwards with the sound off. Because, there were a number of fights where I'm like, man, this guy's just dead wrong. But I try to be open-minded and just say, well, the guy's ringside, there's perspective. Maybe he's hearing something that I'm not, seeing something that I'm not. Because I've seen a few head-scratchers lately from hardcore boxing fans. I mean, Dan Ronald scored it for Jarrett Hurd. He had it like 114, 113. I'm not going to say his last name, but, my buddy Adam scored it for Danny Jacobs in the Canelo fight, and he's pretty much completely at odds with everybody else in that one too. But yeah, I mean, Letterman put in his time. He was a well-known figure, and hopefully he's remembered as such.
All right, and the bad thing is, outside of the old guys like Al Bernstein that are on today, I don't think there's anybody under the age of 60 that we're going to speak of this highly 20 or 30 years from now.
Yeah, I don't think so. Maybe Paulie Malignaggi. I like Paulie.
I don't like Paulie.
You don't like Paulie? I really like Paulie.
I don't know. He's going to do bare-knuckle boxing, I heard, though.
Yeah, I know. I think he's fighting some Russian that is friends with Conor McGregor. I liked Paulie, but he's just taking this Conor McGregor thing too far. I mean, I don't want to get too deep into this because this isn't an MMA show.
Yeah, he needs to let it go because Conor McGregor is really a non-entity in the UFC now, isn't he?
Well, he's not a non-entity. I mean, he's
a loss away from being a non-entity because he's been getting his ass whipped every time he turns around.
Well, yeah, he got beaten in the biggest fight of his career, and then he transitioned to boxing prior to that and got beat clearly too. I mean, I wish Paulie would let it go, man. It's like he's holding this grudge and it's unnecessary, and he just did something childish. I thought, like, there was this video of him walking past a mural of Conor McGregor and he stopped to spit on it. And like it just seems childish, man. Just let it go. Nobody really cares about the sparring stories, and we get it. Paulie's doing it because he can collect a big payday, but I'm just not into it, man.
Paulie's trying to stay relevant.
Yeah, he is. I mean, he does a good job. I think he does a good job on
Luckily
the mic.
for Paulie, pretty soon Conor's going to try to stay relevant, and then he'll get his fight.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But yeah, I'm just leave it alone, man.
All right, Jeremiah, we done for tonight, or you got anything else?
Nah. I think commemorating those two is probably the best. I mean, I did, if we wanted to go to on this day, I did see Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. beat Roger Mayweather. I believe it was the first fight.
Oh, the first fight was the second round knockout. I love that. That's the first time I think I ever saw Chavez because I didn't have cable TV. And if it was the first fight, that would have been like, what, 1985, 86?
I think it was 86. 86, I think that's right. I mean, I just glanced over it. But, yeah, it's funny because you couldn't have a nickname like Roger Mayweather's today. He called himself the Mexican Assassin. But, unfortunately, it was the assassin who was assassinated that night. And to be honest with you, I know Julio Cesar Chavez, it seems like he gets a lot of flack, because, there's like this debate amongst him and Floyd Mayweather. And, honestly, it's a lot of the Latin people who are like, hey, well, he was, 90-0 or something before he suffered his first loss. And then, other people are like, well, Floyd Mayweather's like 50-0, and, it's just a bunch of.
Hey, I'm white people. Rocky Marciano was 49-0.
Yeah, exactly, man. Yeah. Well, I try to go even further. I'm like Jimmy Wild, he was like 100 and he's like 98-0 or something.
Yeah, but then he lost. It doesn't count.
Yeah, he did. Well, if we're talking retiring undefeated, I do think so. Jimmy Berry, the great bantamweight, he did retire undefeated. I think he was 59-0 officially, 63-0.
Did he win the Derby?
If you could, yeah, no, I don't think he participated. I know he's from Chicago, so I think it's a possibility. Well, I mean, if you wanted to go a little bigger, I think Packy McFarlane was undefeated in official contests, so technically he's undefeated. I think he was 70-0, if I'm not mistaken.
I'll just stay with my Rocky Marciano. He's 49-0.
Hey, you do you, man. But no, it just gets annoying that people got to take this stance like, Julio Cesar Chavez, he went this far without suffering a loss, and that's longer than Floyd Mayweather. And it's just you got to put context into this stuff. You can't be just running your mouth, And it's like Chavez, now he's a bum beater to some of these guys. Listen, Chavez.
Hey, you know what? Chavez was a bum beater though, because he beat Craig Houck.
Yeah, he knocked the toupee off old Craig.
Yeah, was he the one that knocked the toupee off? No, I don't think he was.
Nah.
Well, it was Meldrick. Was it Meldrick Taylor that knocked the toupee off?
Ah, damn it! I think so, because I thought it came from a jab or something. But
yeah, that was funny as hell.
Yeah, well, I mean, but Chavez Senior was like a lot of Mexicans, where he didn't have much amateur experience, so he came up that way. I mean, these guys can turn pro at 15, and it's just a different thing. The Eastern Europeans have a lot of amateur experience.
How about this? I think he was a great fighter. I don't think he's one of the greatest fighters I ever saw, though.
Exactly. No,
but
I
he was
agree
a
with
great
that.
fighter.
I do think. Agree. I mean, we had Ruben Castillo on, and he fought Arguello, he fought Salvador Sanchez, and he fought Laporte. Yeah, he fought Laporte, and he fought Chavez, and he had no. There was no hesitation in his voice. Chavez was the greatest.
Yeah, but you got to remember, Ruben really hated Salvador Sanchez.
Well, I mean, I could tell that he was.
He punched like a girl.
Yeah, he said he couldn't bust a grape. I actually listened to that interview not long ago. Yeah, he said Sanchez couldn't bust a grape, and that he was slapping Sanchez around, and that Sanchez was ducking him, and it was only until the WBC mandated a rematch that he was actually going to go through with it. I mean, yeah, it sounds biased, but
it was biased because when you watch his first fight with Sanchez, it's obvious he did not win.
Well, yeah. Well, the thing is, though, is I think it's a little biased also because Castillo was more competitive against Sanchez than he was against any of the other guys. I mean, I thought Arguello was, Arguello stopped him. He went the full tilt with Sanchez, whereas he got stopped.
Sanchez is a guy that, unless he felt threatened, kind of just did enough to win, which would make him similar to today's fighters, except for the fact that when he's fighting Wilfredo Gomez and guys like that, Danny Little Rod Lopez, he went for the finish.
Yeah, I agree, but I do think I think you're right there too. But I also think just watching him, I think he struggled with boxer movers. I mean, you look
but
at
he still beat every one of them.
Correct. I mean, but you look at his fight with Pat Caldell, who was a pretty good fighter.
Rocky Garcia.
Yeah, there you go. I mean, I do think
Pat Ford. There's a lot of them actually.
Yeah, Pat Ford was. I think he was a little bit different stylistically. Very tall guy. From what I remember, he stayed in the middle of the ring a little bit more. But yeah, like Caldell and Castillo and et cetera, they were boxer movers, and they gave Sanchez a bit of trouble. I mean, Sanchez was obviously a great fighter, but like Castillo was talking about how Sanchez slapped with his right hand, and I don't think that's spot on. But I do think it's right that Sanchez had more of a chopping motion than Arguello or Chavez. I think technically Arguello and Chavez were better than Sanchez, but I think, Sanchez had those things that you can't teach. I mean, his stamina was fantastic. It seemed like he was barely breathing even after 15 rounds. He was intuitive. You know what I mean?
I think Sanchez and Arguello were just physically bigger than him too, which would be a problem.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. But I do think that Castillo was right about some stuff, if not totally.
Well, I think Sanchez was better than both of them.
You think so? If Sanchez, who do you think wins? You think Sanchez beats Arguello at 126?
Yeah, I do. Because, I mean, Sanchez was a good boxer. As you would say, he had a lot of nuance to him. And he wasn't real easy to hit a lot. I think that Arguello was stiff. And I think Arguello's a great fighter. He's one of my favorite fighters of all time. I think Sanchez, there was just something about Sanchez that made him a great fighter. And I think that's what all great fighters are. When you see him, you can't necessarily say what it was. There's a lot of great things you could say about Sugar Ray Robinson. There's a lot of great things you could say about Muhammad Ali. But in the end, it was just the fact that they were great. I don't know if that makes any sense to you or not. But, Joe Louis, he's going to figure out how to win. I mean, he had trouble with Billy Conn, but he still knocked Billy Conn out. And that's what makes a great fighter a great fighter. And Sanchez, other than what he loses, his pro debut and had to draw a few fights later. I mean, you're looking at him, the featherweight division, I think in the late 70s through the early to mid 80s, was as stacked as it has ever been. And he dominated that. I mean, do you think he beats Eusebio Pedrosa? I think he beats the hell out of Pedrosa.
I've always favored him over Pedrosa. I actually watched everything Pedrosa was in. I've mentioned this over and over again, but I watched everything Pedrosa was in because I had to write an article on him. And I think Sanchez was better. I mean, you look at Rocky Lockridge, and I thought he beat Pedrosa in the first fight, and he had some other struggles, but I think Sanchez beats him. But it's unfortunate because if Sanchez could have kept maintaining a 126 and would have lived on for a few more years, I mean, he might have had a rematch with a more experienced Azuma Nelson. Jeff Fenech was coming around that time. Obviously, Pedrosa was there.
Well, see, I think Sanchez would have picked Fenech apart, but I think Azuma Nelson is one of the greatest featherweights that ever lived, too.
I think people. Yeah, I think people get a little ahead of themselves. And I saw a debate about this earlier where they're like, oh, well, what did you see in Nelson in the first, when he fought Sanchez that you didn't see later on? Well, I didn't see an experienced Nelson, who was always better in rematches. I think that would have been a really interesting fight. I think Fenech would have been interesting. Pedrosa, Sparagoza was a little bit later.
Well, see, I think Fenech, style-wise, was kind of made for Sanchez, though. He wasn't really a mover.
Because he came to him.
Yeah, and he's going to come to Sanchez, and I think Sanchez would have picked him apart. I do think Jeff Fenech was a great fighter, too, though. It's just his career didn't last that long, and a lot of that maybe had something to do with the style. I don't know. But, I mean, the dude was good enough that I thought he beat Azuma Nelson the first time they fought. If you're beating Azuma Nelson, especially at featherweight, you're a great fighter. And the thing about Azuma Nelson is, I mean, he gave Pernell Whitaker trouble at lightweight.
Yeah. No, he was a great fighter. I'm trying to think of who at 126 could have potentially beaten. I think, I don't know, man. It just seems like, I know Sanchez is great, and some people are like, hey, I don't think he even reached his peak. He was only 23, whatever, yada, yada, yada. I don't know, man.
I think a dude like Bernard Taylor would have gave him trouble.
I think so too. I mean, Taylor
gave slick as hell. Yeah, he would have. Didn't he take Pedrosa to a draw?
Yeah, exactly.
And he gave McGuigan trouble too.
Yep. Yeah, and I mean, well, that's actually what I was thinking of. I'm like, who stylistically would have beaten Sanchez? Because listen, man, I think Sanchez was a great fighter, but I highly doubt he beats, he goes through Fenech, Nelson, Arguello. I just have serious doubts that he goes through all of those guys.
Well, I think Nelson gets him a year or two later.
Yeah, that would have been interesting. But no, I was trying to think of a stylistic tough fight for him, and I think Bernard Taylor would have been tough for him. I think that's a good call, honestly.
Yeah, because, see, I'm old. I remember Bernard Taylor. Bernard Taylor was talented.
Yeah.
He had a hell of an amateur career too, if I remember right.
But and it's funny. That's the thing, as we've talked about on the show too, is that it's funny, man. It's like the official decisions really give people perceptions that aren't always accurate. Like if Bernard Taylor gets the win over Pedrosa, I mean, I think that was midway through Pedrosa's reign. Okay, then Pedrosa doesn't have It's a little exaggerated, but he doesn't have those 19, 20 title defenses, right? I mean, if Rocky Lockridge gets the first decision against Pedrosa, like I think he should have, and like most people thought he should have, again, you're just breaking it up. So I think people need to be.
What
a
about
bit
a
more
Hector Camacho at junior lightweight against Salvador Sanchez? Because that could have happened.
Damn, that would. Ooh. I think that's a tough fight for Sanchez. I know a lot of people, think Sanchez probably goes and bullies him.
I think Camacho whoops his ass. I don't think Camacho's near as great a fighter, but he was physically. I just think he was bigger in that style. I mean, people forget that at junior lightweight and lightweight, Camacho could crack, especially at junior lightweight.
Well, yeah, and he was one of the fastest fighters I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Not only that. I mean, how many southpaws did Sanchez ever fight? I can't think of one. Maybe I'm wrong.
I don't remember, but I never can remember which hand I am. So, another guy that fought in that style was ranked in the top 10 around that time. Jackie Beard, I think, could have given him problems. I don't think Jackie Beard would have beat him, but he was a slick boxer too, with a great amateur pedigree.
Yeah. Well, how good would have been? What about Rocky Lockridge Sanchez? I mean, that seems like that would have been a pretty cracking fight.
Oh yeah, I can't believe Rocky didn't fight him. Rocky fought everybody.
Yeah, well, Sanchez had to go and die, man. But that would have been a hellacious battle.
Yeah, I still remember the day he died and where I was and what happened. Everybody else remembers when John Lennon did, but I remember exactly where I was when he died. I was watching the news, and it actually is the only time on the local news in Cincinnati that they actually had news about a boxer, and he died.
Damn.
Because I remember, wasn't he driving like a Ferrari or something?
I believe it was a Porsche.
Okay, I know it was something like that, but yeah. I mean, I just remember it coming on, and that was it. And he was one of my favorite fighters. Hated to see that happen to anybody, but especially one of my favorite fighters. But let's see. Yeah, I can't think of any other featherweights that stylistically. What about Calvin Grove?
Grove would have been. I think
Grove was a good fighter. I mean, he gave Jeff Fennick trouble. Didn't he take Fennick to a decision, or like Fennick stopped him in like the 14th or 15th?
Damn, what was that? I remember. Damn it! I think they only fought once, and I remember hearing from an Aussie guy that Calvin Grove landed the best punch, just about the best punch of his life against Jeff Fennick. What the hell did he say? He landed a right hand and busted his face to smithereens or something. I'm trying to think of what the hell exactly he said.
Did they only fight once, or did they have a rematch? I can't remember.
I don't know, but Grove lost to Bernard Taylor.
Yeah, because Bernard Taylor was a damn good fighter.
No, that's right. No,
I still think Bernard Taylor beat Eusebio Pedrosa, so he'd actually been a champion.
Yep. Well, maybe not if Lockridge would have gotten the decision first, but no, he actually beat Jeff Fennick. That's right. Yeah, the guy said he landed the best punch of his life and ended up stopping Jeff Fennick.
Who, Calvin Grove?
Yep, 7th round stoppage.
You sure about that, Jeremiah?
Dude, I'm looking at it right here.
On what?
Let's see.
Because I thought he TKO'd Grove in like the 13th or 14th round.
Nope, TKO 7, man.
Against Calvin Grove.
Yep,
Jeff
Grove
Fennick.
Stopped him.
Jeff Fennick.
Yep.
I don't think so, Jeremiah.
It's real. It's real, man. It's real. Go to BoxRec and take a look.
No, because the Calvin Grove fight was in '93. It was after the Azuma Nelson loss. Oh, yeah. Grove beat him. You're right. What the hell am I thinking? All right. Yeah, because he went to crap after that, because I think Philip Holliday stopped him too, didn't he?
Let's see. I'm trying to find this right hand here. Trying to see the punch. Because, yeah, the Aussie guy was talking about it was the best punch Grove's ever landed in his life.
Well, the cool thing is Fennick beat Carlos Zarate, too.
Oh, Jesus, dude. Yeah, no, I just watched the stoppage. It was a huge right hand. Yeah, he busted him pretty good. Yeah, no, Fennec, he dipped to his left as Grove was throwing a right
Leaned
hand and
into
just
it.
increased the impact. Yep. Yeah, no, he laid him out, man.
All right, Jeremiah, we're going to go ahead and wrap it up for tonight. We will be
All right.
back tomorrow night with something else interesting. Make sure you go to iTunes, rate us, give us some comments. If you got any messages, any ideas for the show, hit us up at Grueling Truth. Send us a message there or at TGTN Boxing. You can hear all of our shows on iHeartRadio, iTunes, TuneIn, Spreaker, Stitcher, Spotify, Xeno Live Radio, YouTube, wherever you find sports podcasts, you'll find the Grueling Truth. So, for Jeremiah Preisser, I'm Mike Goodpaster. You've been listening to the Grueling Truth, where the legends speak.